Hey YouTube, Jim here. Welcome to Top 10 Archive. Remember in 2012 when everyone thought that the world was ending? And, the dozens of other times before and after that. Well, if you look through the many mythologies and religions of the world, you'll find so many different ways the world was, or is, slated to end that we just aren't paying attention to. Not sure if that's more or less of a comfort, but here are 10 of those ways for your viewing pleasure. Not that it will matter when the world ends, but go ahead and subscribe and be sure to click the bell for future notifications. If the world doesn't end by the end of this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment because we're always looking for a good conversation.
Number 10. Sermon of the Seven Sons. There will come a season, O monks, when after hundreds of thousands of years, rains will cease. All seedlings, all vegetation, all plants, grasses, and trees will dry up and cease to be. The words described by Buddha in the Sermon of the Seven Sons are a version of the apocalypse foretold in Buddhist theology. According to the text found in the Pali Canon, 7 suns will appear before Earth, with the 7th one setting the world ablaze, engulfing every inch into an impossible inferno that kills all signs of life. Number 9. The Death of Kiviuk. In Inuit epic stories, Kiviuk is a legendary hero, a wanderer that deals with adversaries like spirits, giants, sea monsters, and cannibals. It's not a widespread belief among all Inuit people, but some, like a smaller sect near Baker Lake in Washington, think that when the great hero dies, the world will end. The Inuit were also subject to a movement called Mimiximanik, which involved multiple messiah figures cropping up from the 1930s to the 1950s, depicting their own version of the apocalypse. Number 8. The End of the Kalpas. According to traditional Hindu scriptures, eons, or kalpas, are divided into smaller cycles or periods. Kalpas are said to last 8.64 billion years, or one day-night cycle for Brahma. Our current kalpa consists of 4 yuga, or epochs, and we're living through the last yuga, Kali Yuga. At the end of this age, which is filled with violence and decay, the 10th and last avatar of Vishnu, Kalki, will appear atop a white horse with a blazing sword drawn. Kalki is believed to bring the end of times, which will wipe out humanity and usher in the Satya Yuga, the first yuga of the next cycle. Number 7. Yom ad-Din. The Arabic word for the Day of Judgment. Followers of Islam believe that on this day, God will judge those that have passed. Their soul awaits for Yom ad-Din, anticipating God's arrival and subsequent judgment. Those judged favorably will enter Akhirah, or the Islamic afterlife. Upon his judgment, God will wipe out all life from existence. There's no specific time frame as to when Yom ad-Din will occur, but there are 10 major signs, including the emergence of a false messiah like the Antichrist, a large black cloud of smoke engulfing Earth, and the rising of the sun from the west. Number 6. The story of Utnapishtim and the Great Flood. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the end of the world scenario already technically happened and shared similarities with the story of Noah's Ark. At the core of the Gilgamesh flood myth is Utnapishtim, a mortal man that was tasked by Enki, the Sumerian god of water, to abandon his life, gather his family, animals, and grains, and build a large ship that would survive an oncoming flood. It was Utnapishtim's task to preserve humanity while the rest of the world was washed away by the rush of water. Number 5. End of Days. According to Jewish eschatology, or the theological section that deals with the end of the world, the end of days is less about the end of the world and more about the conclusion to history as we perceive it. Possibly the best version of the apocalypse we could ask for, end of days is a sort of rebirth, where the world will continue on and world peace will be prevalent. Then again, how end of days unfolds can be a bit of a bummer. According to one scenario, the Messiah will arrive on a donkey after societies have started to crumble and the world is engulfed in a cataclysmic world war. But it's okay, because everything will be okay afterwards. Number 4. Frashakarati. According to Zoroastrian beliefs, the end of the world will be preceded by a great battle at the tail end of the third time. Forces of good and evil will battle, with good prevailing. And while that sounds like the best scenario, what happens on Earth seems less than ideal. The dead will be resurrected and are forced to partake in a last judgment with the living. The metal in the hills and mountains will be melted, forming a molten river that mankind will need to wade through. Those marred by wicked deeds will be burned and will follow the flow of the river down to hell. The righteous will enjoy their time in the river and will be left to thrive once all wickedness is removed from the world. Number 3. When autumn gets bored. According to Egyptian scriptures, the end of the world is a possibility, but thankfully, it can also be avoided. Since it's not a guarantee, the apocalypse isn't described in thorough detail, but from the texts that are available, it's been determined that the ancient civilization believed in cycles of renewal. In the Book of the Dead, Atum, the god of creation, reveals his plan to return the world to its primeval state. When he decides to revert back to the waters of chaos that predated mankind, all life forms, even Egyptian deities besides Osiris and himself, will cease to exist. Number 2. Rapture. In Christian faith, the rapture is the end of the world event depicted in shows like The Leftovers and in the Left Behind series. All believers of Christianity, living and dead, will rise into the sky to join their Savior, Jesus Christ. Those accepted into heaven will have to give an account of their work done on earth, while those that weren't raptured will be faced with an apocalyptic event that will ravage the world and wipe out all of mankind. There have been dozens of predictions of the supposed rapture, with one of the most infamous being that of Harold Camping, who convinced millions that May 21, 2011 was the end of the world. Number 1. Ragnarok. Try not to get your Norse mythology from Thor Ragnarok. It was in the relative ballpark, but not quite a good representation of the Nordic end of times. It's true that Surtur, the fiery being at the beginning of the film, plays a role, but he's not the sole bringer of damnation. Ragnarok is depicted as a great battle between the gods, instigated by Loki and his wolf son Fenrir. In the war between the gods and giants, Odin, Thor, and Freya fell, as did the sea serpent Jormungand and the fire giant Surtur. Ultimately, the war-torn land sank into the seas, leaving nothing in its wake but the bottomless abyss Ginnungagap. So depictions of Ragnarok view the event as the end of a cyclical period and not the end of history and life. Thanks for watching. I see we made it to the end of this video without the world coming to an end. Take a chance, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified about the release of our next video. Or if you think there isn't time to wait, then here are 2 more videos you can watch right away.